friends, this lesson is intended for elementary. So today we are going to be working on a quite challenging project, but when I've done it in the past with elementary students, we've come up with some beautiful pieces, and I think you will be very proud of what you've created if you decide to give this a try. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be replicating a portrait of Mrs. von Hartmann that was completed, Sophia, you can zoom in on this, by an artist named Gabriele Münter. She is actually a favorite artist of mine, and that's why I've chosen for us to work on a project in her style. Gabriele Münter was part of the German Expressionist group. She lived in the late 1800s through about the mid-1900s. She was working in a style that was quite controversial at the time. The German Expressionists were often called the Fauves as well, which they were working with vivid colors that were oftentimes not realistic. And then they often used bold outlines. So if you look at this portrait of Mrs. von Hartmann that I have created, you can see that I have the very dark, bold outlines in black. And then the style of painting, again, in this particular portrait that I created, I decided to choose mostly warm colors with just a splash of a cool color, just one in there for kind of an accent. But the overall feeling is kind of warmth, of the warm colors. So, I want to tell you a little bit more about Gabriele Münter. So she was working in this style, and when she was a young woman studying, she was not allowed to attend the German academies for art because she was a woman. So she was studying at a women's school, but she really wasn't satisfied with the instruction that she was receiving. So lucky for her, she was a woman of some wealth. I believe that her parents had passed away, and she and her sister were given a very large sum of money to live on. So she and her sister decided to go to America, and Gabriele they both ended up staying for much longer than intended. It was 2 years. So she studied in America, and she was exposed to a lot of different techniques that many of her contemporaries were not exposed to, women contemporaries in Germany. So it was I would say, a very worthwhile experience for her. But she did eventually return to Germany and continue to study. She studied with another artist that you have been introduced to. We talked about the artist Vasily Kandinsky, and we actually did a project. I have it right here just to refresh your memories. We did a project that looks something like this. And it was, again, kind of a replica of a very famous Kandinsky painting. And I'm sure you remember when we worked on this, we did a lot of pre-planning before we even started. So we took each one of our squares and we decided where we were going to place them. We tried not to put two of the same color right next to each other, etc. We did a lot of planning, and it took most of you quite some time to complete this. So, I think it was a very successful project. I really liked what we came up with, what you came up with. So we're going to do a similar thing with the Gabriele Münter project. So, did I just mention Vasily Kandinsky? I did. Yes. That she studied with him, and she actually traveled around the world with him, painting and just learning about the world. And she did that for at least a decade with Vasily Kandinsky. So they influenced each other. If you look at some of the paintings from Kandinsky and Gabriele Münter, you will notice that some of them are very similar, and you really can't tell who painted them. They even collaborated on some of their paintings, so both of their names will be on particular paintings. But what kind of is upsetting to me is that many people know about Vasily Kandinsky, but not a lot of people know about Gabriele Münter. And unfortunately, that has a lot to do with the fact that she was a woman living during that time period. So I'm kind of bringing her to light because I also feel it's my responsibility as your art teacher to expose you to some fabulous women artists as well. So before we start, you are going to be doing this portrait using a template, okay? The template can be picked up at Northside. It's in the black tote that is by the back door. And this is what we're going to be working on. All right, so if Sophia wants to zoom in a little bit on this, you can also see that I have done some pre-planning myself, and I have very lightly penciled in the colors that I'm intending to use for all the sections on this portrait. So here I've decided I'm going to use blue. I'm going to use purple here, blue here. This is going to be, I can't quite read that. What did I put there?
Orange.
Orange, okay. So that's going to be my little accent of my warm color. I'm going to try to complete this one more in the cool colors, which I want to look at show you the color wheel. We've had this at school before. And this is kind of how I went about planning both of my portraits. So the first one that I did over here was done mostly in warm tones, okay? So this part of the color wheel is considered the warm colors. So we have the reds, the orange, the yellows. On the cool side of the color wheel are the greens and purples and blues, all right? So we've talked about this. We all know what the primary colors are. These are warm and cool colors. We've talked about that as well. Okay, so wonderful tool, the color wheel. So if you want to come around this side, so if we're going to take a look here.
So got Melly in there.
Oh, you got Melly? Oh, good. We always like to have our kitty visit. So, all right, I think I'm going to have to scoot the chair out a tiny bit first, okay? Don't fall. All right. So if you look at the portrait that I have completed, if Sophia zooms in a little bit, you can notice that none of these colors are actually one solid color. And that's really what we're going to be focusing on today, is the fact that many times the interest in a painting is created by using multiple colors and not just plain solid colors. Even though this brown looks like it's pretty solid brown, it has tints of orange in here and some yellow and some red, and so it's a real combination. All right, so let's take a look here. I think I'll start with some large areas, and I'll start with the blue. I'm going to, I forgot to go over supplies. Sorry about that. So if we go over to our supplies, we're going to need some paints. Now I have quite a lot of paints set out, but the reality is you really could have one blue, one green, one purple, white and black, and you could work with those colors. That would be enough for you to mix some different shades of the colors. But since I have the luxury of having a lot of paints at home, I just decided to put more than one of each color that I've chosen of the cool colors out. All right, so we have paints, we have brushes, we have a water container, and something to mix your paints on. Okay, so let's start with the blue area. And I think I am going to paint my this area that I've decided to paint blue with one solid color to start with, all right? And I think I'm going to pick my darkest blue. So I do want to emphasize that before you begin this project, you do need to do the planning. And you can see that I've decided blue, blue, purple, dark green for the jacket, light green for her skirt, and light green on her lapels for her jacket. I've decided her tie is going to be purple. I've decided again her this part of her hat's going to be teal, this part will be dark green, etc. I planned out my entire portrait before I started, and that is very important that you take the time to make your plan before you begin. All right, and you might notice that I have different size brushes today. Since I'm doing a large area, I'm going to work with my largest brush to start with. All right, so I'm going to paint this a blue. Oh, you know what I forgot was my newspaper. Yeah, all right. Well, I'm just going to be careful. I will probably not go right to my edge of my paper. All right, so I'll just go. Not quite. Oop, I went onto the table. Okay. Good reason to have newspaper, friends. All right, let's go around her hat. And just remember that in my completed portrait, I go around all of the parts of Mrs. von Hartmann with black. So if you don't get all the way quite to the edge, that's totally fine, because we will be using that black outline, and that is kind of a signature part of Gabriele Münter's style, was that very bold outline. All right, so that's good enough. And I'm going to try not to get any more paint on the table. All right, I'm also going to fill in this part that I want to have as a blue section of my portrait. All right, so you can see I've got a very dark blue as my background. All right, so now I want to add some different shades of blue. So I'm going to take my dark blue. I'm going to try to make 1, 2 other shades, all right? One, I'm just going to add white and make it light, all right? And then the other one, I'm just going to add a little bit of an aqua blue to make it a different blue. All right, so let's start with, I'm going to do this one first. All right, that made a very nice, and I'm not even going to mix it that well because I want it to look multicolored, multi-shades of color. All right, and you notice that this time I'm not filling the whole background in. I'm kind of doing these short strokes. If you can look on here, you can see I did the same thing. I think I'm going to use a different brush as well. All right, so that's kind of a good start. Let me take a little smaller brush and make my light blue. Okay, it's not all that light. It's a little different shade. All right, ooh, I like that, with a little white showing through. All right, so I'm gonna just take my brush. And you notice I am going all in the same direction. You could try doing more of a varied kind of brush stroke too, just so that you get an idea that this is not all one solid color. All right, I think I'm gonna, looks a little too uniform. I need to put some more in there. Let's see. Color in there. All right, I think I need a little lighter. And again, this is all your preference. So if you get to a point where you look at it and you say, "Ooh, I like that," that's where you should stop. All right, I'm not there yet. I'm still trying to find the spot that I like. I like this going different directions, actually. I think it gives a very interesting look. That's what's kind of fun about doing the same project another time. Now I'm getting to use different colors and a little bit different brush strokes. But you should always be kind of experimenting when you're painting. So what do you think? How does that look from your
I
angle?
like it. I would stop.
Should I
now.
stop?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, because then you're gonna cover up all of the dark blue, and you want
And
it
I
to
don't
show
wanna
through
have-
somewhere.
Although you know what, maybe I should come in with a little more dark blue
Dark,
now.
yeah.
Okay. I don't want it to look like the edges are the only place where there's dark blue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, and it's all right if I go in there a little bit because, like I said, we're going to come back with the black. All right, so I'm gonna put a little more dark blue in there. If I can get some to come out of my paint. Oh wait, that's the wrong, no, that is the right blue, okay. Okay, there we go. All right, let's try. I realize I don't have a paper towel either. That would be helpful. All right, let's try a little bit of the blue with a little smaller brush. That might be too much. I might have to come back over that, won't I? We'll see.
Oh.
Kind of a interesting contrast now. What do you think?
I like it.
Okay, I think I'll stop there.
You should start.
All right, so now this background is going to be purple. So let's go with that. We're gonna do the similar thing. I'm gonna start with this color purple. Might need a little more. Oh, all right. Now, let's see if I can get my brush. I may have to stand up for a minute, Soph, and rinse that brush a little more. And I'm going to get a paper towel as well. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. And I really don't mind if there's a little blue mixed into my purple. Because I'm sure friends remember what colors make purple. Does anybody remember? It's blue and red, so that would be totally fine if there was some blue in there. All right, so now I'm gonna start with my purple. Same thing, I'm gonna fill it in first with one color. You can see there is some blue in there and it looks good. Okay. Oh, there's my kitty crying. What do you want, kitty? Oh, you have plenty of food, baby. Yeah, you do. Okay, again, I'm trying not to get too much paint on the table. I hope you all learn from my example, get newspaper. Okay, so there's my purple background, and again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add some white. I'm just going to take this white right from here, because that's going to give me a very interesting purple. And I'm going to do some... By using the same blue that I used over here, I'm kind of making a connection between the backgrounds, which is also oftentimes a nice way to have your painting feel a little more cohesive, all right? So there we go. I think maybe let's try another little different, maybe a little darker. What do you think, Soph?
Yeah.
A little darker? Okay, so I've got this really dark purple. It's called Black Plum. And I'm gonna mix a little bit of this with it. Oh, this paint has got something dried in it. I can feel it. Yeah, there it is. All right, there's some better paint. All right, so let's add a little bit of this really dark stuff and see what happens. All right, let's see how that works. Oh yeah, almost looks brownish, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll kind of limit my use of that, I think. Not sure I like that as much.
I don't like it as much as the other purples.
Yeah, okay, so let's add a little more, let me get that off my brush. I use this one, so let's try using this purple. It's just slightly different. And I'll use the smaller brush. Oh, Katie wants out. That's why she was crying. All right, you have to wait, Ellie. Okay, so I'm trying to cover everything. All right, I think that's good. Oh, and this part's a little too uniform. All right, how's that look from your angle, Soph?
Looks good.
Okay, next thing would be the, I could start with the dark green. But I can keep going with this, but I really think that at this point, friends should get the idea. What I will do is I will complete this painting and then I'll try to post a picture of it along with the lesson. And I also wanted to mention that if you want to look at the actual painting that Gabriele Münter did of Mrs. von Hartmann, it is, you can look at it online. It's the museum, the Art Museum of Milwaukee, Wisconsin actually has the painting. And let's see, I wrote it down. Okay, so you would just have to do a Google search for Milwaukee Museum of Art, paintings by Gabriele Münter, and it will come up. And it's very interesting. I hesitate to say look at it first because I almost don't want it to influence the color choices that you make, but that's your decision. You can decide if you want to look at it and then have your painting look more similar to her original, or if you want to just completely come up with your own choice of colors, that works too. So, if you want to scoot around to the other side. All right, so you can see the beginning of this one. You can see the completed version, and you can see how different they will, how different yet how similar they will look once this one is completed. I also wanted to show, if you get very excited about this style of painting, you could also try doing a landscape. So I did another sample. I was considering having you do a landscape in this same kind of style where we used multicolors, brilliant, vivid, bold colors, and then the black outlines. So you could try creating something else that you choose yourself as well. Okay? So that's the lesson for this week, my friends. I look forward to seeing some of your work. I appreciate when families are sending in the pictures. It's really gives me a lot of happiness to see what you're up to. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Bye.